I was a mistake, technically. My mother was wearing a diaphragm. My father was wearing a condom. And somehow I busted on through. I was staying at her place, looking after her stuff, driving back, sleeping at the hospice facility, which to this day is the most uncomfortable mattress I've ever slept on in my life.
Do you want to shout out the brand?
I wish I remembered the name. It's funny. We didn't even have them in hospice because she was not deteriorating fast enough.
She wasn't deteriorating fast enough?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
When you go to hospice, it's supposed to be the last stop.
Yeah.
Right? And so then I think towards the end, her insurance wouldn't cover it anymore because she wasn't, deteriorating fast enough. That word I really learned to dislike. She predicted when she was going to die before it happened.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Maurice came to see me in my dreams. We were like, who? She's like, yeah, I have to go with him to the stars on Thursday.
What?
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard not to laugh at your trauma.
Oh, no, I know. Don't worry. It's okay. It's okay. We can call this the humorous episode. Yeah, so the deal with my dad was he was never around in my life, really. I was a mistake, technically. My mother was wearing a diaphragm. My father was wearing a condom. And somehow I busted on through.
Pun intended.
Yep, nice.
Nice.
And she was 27, living in Germany. And I think they were dating for a few months at the time. And, I think he just wasn't ready, And I used to be a lot angrier about it when I was younger. And there are certain things now, how it ties in, where it's now that I've become older and I have more questions, more so than anger. And now I'm just sad that I can't ask my mom those questions about all of that I wanted to. Because when I was younger, it was hard for me to talk about because I wasn't ready. And then eventually when my mom got sick, I didn't, feel like the time. Mm-hmm. And so, that's the only part that is sort of tough now. It's any question I have, I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I just don't get that answer.
How long has it been since your mom passed?
It was in 2017.
Okay. And you're saying at the time now you feel like you're ready to have had those conversations that you never had.
Yeah, she was, to her credit, she was more willing to talk about it, when I was younger. I just wasn't ready because I didn't want to deal with that. I wasn't emotionally equipped. I wasn't probably physically equipped.
I could tell.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's a very interesting because, I was going to do that documentary about going to meet him for the first time. And we got everything ready right in February of 2019 or 2020, whatever it was, right before COVID. And then, so that kind of because my father, I found out later in life, lives in Australia. And did I tell you about the time my half-sister found me on MySpace?
No.
Yeah. So I was, remember MySpace?
Yeah.
I was 18, and I came home to a message on my MySpace that was like, hey, from some random girl. She was like, hey, is your mom's name this? Because if so, I think we have the same father. I was like, huh.
No shit.
Yeah. I was like, okay. So I ended up chatting with her. I have two half-sisters, and I chat with them sporadically on Instagram and stuff, not all the time. And sometimes it strangely feels uncomfortable for me just because, I've never had sisters, right? I never had only child, single mom, right? And most of my family didn't really get along. So it was a very kind of new experience. Mm-hmm. Not being used to that, not wondering does my dad know that they're talking to me? I assume they have to, they found me in my name. And it was just funny to me that they reached out to me before he ever did, at least that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. And so, I chat with them still and yeah.
Wait, so what happened with your dad and finding him?
Oh, well, it's just kind of been put on hold for now.
So he's still out there?
He's still out there and I still want to go do it. I just need to reallocate funds and sort of just, I need to learn fiscal responsibility, which is a tough one for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the plan is still that, just because I'm turning 35, I have an aunt whom I love very much and she's great. She's in my life. But other than that, that's about it for family members that I talk to.
Well, we'll get more into that in regards to finding your dad because I find that fascinating. I think it's all going to tie back together. But is it 2017?
2017
is when your mom passed, and she was sick of what she got sick.
She had ovarian cancer.
Okay, and how long in advance did you have with her before she passed?
Well, she had it for probably 6 years before that, and it she'd beaten it. Gone away, come back, gone away, come back. We even had a very stereotypical almost like movie-like moment where I was there for Christmas once, and on Christmas Day, she found out she was cancer-free for one time. So that was like, the best Christmas ever.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I'll never forget this. My aunt called me one day. It was like towards the end, and she was like, Miles, she's like, you have to come out here. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, it's getting worse. It's not looking good. And in my mind, I think I sort of just avoided it. Like I knew she had it, and I knew she wasn't doing well. But then, like, when I went home and I saw her, and she was just like frail and like, bald. And it was, And that's when I was like, oh, okay. And so I went home for a year to take care of her. She was in hospice for a while, so I was in Connecticut. I was staying at her place, looking after her stuff, driving back, sleeping at the hospice facility, which to this day is the most uncomfortable mattress I've ever slept on in my life.
Do you want to shout out the brand?
Oh, I wish I could. I wish I remembered the name. And so then hospice was an interesting experience because it had me gain an entire new respect for nurses and a little bit more disdain for doctors.
How so?
Well, just because like these nurses were the ones in every day, checking on my mom, taking care of her, making sure she had everything we need, checking on me, making sure I was okay. And then my mom was in that hospice for, I think, a little over a month, and I saw a doctor once, like come in, talk to her. And each time they I guess it's their job to not sugarcoat it, but I was like, my God, could we throw a little pepper of positivity on here? And he just did not. So that's where I gained sort of obviously doctors are great, but my personal experience with that particular one was not great.
That makes sense. When I had that experience with my mom and being in the hospital was my first long-term, if you will, even was a week being in the hospital that bad. And the nurses, you do see the work the nurses put in, not to say doctors don't. And like you said, that entails their job description, I guess, come in, this, that, and the other. But it was like, okay, the doctor came in for 7 seconds, said this, but then you're really dealing with the nurses. Yeah. So what was that experience like outside of what you just said with hospice, specifically with your mom? So you knew it was getting towards the end. What were those conversations like?
Well, it's funny. We didn't even have them in hospice because she was not, to quote them, deteriorating fast enough for them.
She wasn't deteriorating fast enough? Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, so when you go to hospice, that's like, it's supposed to be the last stop, right? And they had her in a semi-private room, and like, I'm not joking, 3 old people came in, died, and left while she was there. And it was like, I was like, this is awful. And so then I think towards the end, her insurance wouldn't cover it anymore because she wasn't, deteriorating fast enough. That word I really learned to dislike because I couldn't believe they just described my mother like that. So then, but it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because then we took her to my aunt's house in Maine and we set up home care there. So we moved up there and it was hard. It was different every day. And I remember my mom sat me down one time and she was like, hey, like we need to talk. Like this could be it, because she was losing a lot of oxygen to her brain. And then, this will lead to a fun story for you. You'll like this a lot. For me? Yeah, well, it ties in really well. She was losing oxygen to her brain a lot, and so she wasn't going to be all there, like cognitively, for a while. So we sat down and we had a really nice talk, and she asked me how I was feeling, and I just told her I was going to miss her a lot, and I still do. And then afterwards, she started not getting the oxygen to her brain, and it was very, almost like dementia-like. She's just kind of all over the place, saying random things, saying weird things. And then she predicted when she was going to die before it happened.
Really?
Mm-hmm. For exclusive access to bonus content, new episodes, and more, check out our Patreon account for only $5 a month. Link is in the description.
So she was she was acting loopy, doing all these stuff, and my aunt and I were in the living room. Oh, what was his name? I think it was Maurice. She Maurice or Paul. God, I wish I could remember the name she said. But she looks at us and she's like, oh yeah, Maurice came to see me in my dreams. We were like, who? She's like, yeah, I have to go with him to the stars on Thursday.
What?
Yeah. She said that. And then that Thursday night, I'll never forget this. I was watching Thursday Night Football. My mom's hospice bed is over here. My aunt was sleeping. I was sleeping in the living room on a mattress just so I could be right there. Me and her wife or partner, Brenda, were sitting there watching TV. It's dead silent. Phone was in between us, and then bang, the phone rings. Loudest ring I've ever heard of this phone in my entire life. Scared the absolute shit out of me and Brenda. Like and even Brenda was like, I've never heard it ring that loud. As soon as that phone rang, my mother started doing what they call fish out of water breathing, which they give you a very inspiring pamphlet when you set up home health care for signs to look out for. And so basically it's like all the different stages, and basically the last one is fish out of water breathing, means you have about 20 minutes left before she dies. And so the phone rang, that started happening. And then, the three of us were around her, and about 15 minutes later, she was gone.
Who called?
Oh, yeah, you know what? I might have a bone to pick with them. I think it was my aunt's neighbor down the street.
We should have that person on the podcast.
Yeah.
I should have prefaced before the episode started that me and Miles are very close friends.
Yes.
So just don't get your panties in a bunch.
Only took me 5 years to get invited to this fucking podcast.
So I just want to crack open the insensitivity of certain moments.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, David's a real sensitive guy.
No, how do you take that moment? Because to me, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I really my mother was a very spiritual person, and she got me into spirituality, and I would say I'm agnostic. I'm not really any specific religion or anything, but she got me into that, and it made the most sense that's how that's how she pictured leaving this planet, and hopefully maybe one day Maurice is there to pick me up. That's what I like to think.
Do you know who that person is? You don't know who that person is?
No idea.
Or Paul, whoever it was.
Yeah.
We still know.
It was a name. My aunt and I were like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah, so that's the two different things. Like I see, you can see both sides as, maybe someone's hallucinating this or that, but to have.
Oh, I don't think she was.
I don't know. I'm not even saying that. I'm just taking the devil's advocate of, I know how people respond to that, but to parlay it with predicting her death and then all those synchronicities of the phone call, then it happening.
Yeah. It was weird.
That's really bizarre. It's gotta be comforting.
Kind of. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it was comforting the fact, it was hard. The last 4 days, my mom wasn't there. It was the person I'd known, my mother, she was there, but she couldn't focus on a conversation, yada, yada, yada. But then, that makes you think maybe she's more in tune with something on a higher level, right? Because you have all the blocks that you have in your regular life that your brain blocks you with out of the way.
That does make sense because in the hospice field, they call it visioning, where they see when they're about to die. I don't know if it's weeks or days, not 20 minutes per se, but it's very common that the people that are passing see someone on the other side and almost escort them.
Yeah.
And it does seem like maybe they are in a different wavelength that allows that to happen. And it always happens at the end, not months or something before.
Well, I've always thought that, because I can't remember where I got this idea from. It was probably something I read or saw. But they talk about that's why kids can see ghosts, right? Because they don't have all the blocks that we build up throughout our lives and growing up that just the world gives you. And so I think, when we see or experience things like that, it's almost like an intense moment of naivete, right? You're back to that, everything's new, everything's open. You're open to everything.
Yes.
So therefore you can actually see everything.
Yeah, I wonder if that ties into, again, the idea of what people believe in. They don't believe in the afterlife. Some of these stories that I believe in, and clearly you believe in, and people don't. I think it does come down to...
What a bummer, right?
I know. It's it really is.
Yeah.
Me. I mean, I don't feel bad for them because it's if they're happy, but
I do.
But a lot, me too, to be honest, a little bit. Because at the same time, it's they get so aggressive. When I say they, it does, I'm like, are you... If they're happy with that, but sometimes they come...
Yes, can you be?
I don't know. Can you be?
Sounds so boring.
Sounds boring, but also just empty.
Brutal.
Yeah. Fucking brutal to think like that.
I mean...
And again, it goes back to if you find... I don't know if they find happiness in that, though.
I don't know. Maybe they're afraid.
That's another topic that does come out. It's maybe a blockage of fear.
Yeah. Are you afraid of dying?
Of what?
Dying.
You'd think I wouldn't be, but... my beliefs definitely have been, I'm very open-minded to this stuff, so I learn a lot from people's stories. And from what I'm hearing, no, not anymore, because a lot of it, I think, what people are fearing, not only the unknown, is the fear how we're going to die, right? The potential pain of it. But then I hear several people talk about how when it near-death experiences or just spiritual people or mediums talk about how when there is a very painful event, or people die in a very physically painful experience, that I've heard that the soul leaves the body ejects essentially when that pain's happening. So it's as if the body looks like they're going through some really painful experience, but the soul already ejected because they're almost anticipating the death, and they don't really, so they're not really experiencing that pain. So if that's true, then that eliminates the theory of suffering through death. But then again, there's the suffering
fingers crossed.
I mean, yeah. 4 fingers, please. But then there's the idea of you're still suffering leading up to that. You know, like going through like a painful death.
The Buddhists believe life is suffering, right? Like
it is. It 100% is. This is. How many times have we had a discussion at the bar about what we're going through? And it's like,
I know
that we are.
Maybe we need to get it together.
I think we do. But I want to tie back into you led this conversation in regards to, you know, having, I don't want to say the word regret, but just thoughts on wishing you asked your mom specific questions about your father. So was there a reason why you didn't ask these questions when you knew your mom was declining? Was it due to her cognitive ability, or was it just it didn't come to?
It seemed less important at the time. I just wanted to be there for her. You know, everything was about her.
Love that.
And I had a really nice moment actually at the hospice facility. So a little backstory. Led Zeppelin is my favorite band of all time. My mother gave me my first album or CD back then. Remember those? And it was Zeppelin 4. And the song Going to California became my favorite song, inspired me to move out here, try and become an actor.
An actor.
Thank you. In my life, I've had a couple moments where that song comes on right when I need it to, right? And like when my mom and I packed up the moving van to move out here to California, that song played on the radio first day we were driving out. And it's been a couple other times. And there was a moment I was at hospice with my mom. It was a night I was going to stay at her place. I was in the parking lot of the hospice facility. And I was thinking to myself, because I was back in Connecticut, I wasn't auditioning, and I was just like, you know what? I'm okay with it. I was like, I'm okay that I can be here for her, to take care of her, to be here when she needs me most. Like, because, you know, I wanted to be out here. And she had told me at one point, like, you know, if I'd like booked a job or something, she would have been like, go film that, because that's your dream. But I was just sitting, smoking a cigarette, thinking to myself, like, I'm okay with this. Like, I want to be here. I'm glad I can be here for her. Got in the car, turned it on. That song's on the radio.
Oh, man.
And that was really nice for me during a very hard time, because it was just that whole experience of being there, like being in her apartment when she's not there, and then packing up her stuff. And it was hard for a long time. And that made it a little bit easier for at least a night.
Yeah, it gives you the chills. And it's come up a million times, but there's moments after, like obviously you have the experience in the hospital, the hospital, and then she's gone. And then there's those quiet moments afterwards, like the real moments, if you will, of cleaning up and realizing she's not there. It's those moments where I feel the most real. Yeah. So what is that process for you? I'm curious to see of that first couple of years to where you are now, because you kind of alluded how you feel more emotionally mature for these questions and these thoughts, and like how has your grief evolved from the day she's dead?
I started therapy, which was a huge help
for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
therapist.
Yeah. She's retiring soon. Apparently not because of me. But I wasn't in therapy for the first few years afterwards, and I did not do myself any favors, because I got pretty heavy into drugs at the time, because that was the only way I sort of numbed the pain. And that created a little problem I still deal with occasionally from time to time now. But then finally I got into therapy and started, unlocking a lot of things, talking about a lot of things. One interesting thing that happened was, like, my mother's big on dreams, right? I don't know how big you are on like their significance and what they all mean. But for the first year after my mom died, I didn't have a single dream about her. And for some reason, I don't know why, but it bothered me. Like, I was like, okay. And then the first dream I had about her was about like a little over a year afterwards. And in the dream, it was just my mom and I used to do this all the time. We would drive through neighborhoods and talk about houses we liked. And then the first dream I had about her was that. We were doing that. And it was like 5 minutes. That's all I remember. And I woke up and I was like, okay, that was nice. And then I just started crying, because that was the first time I'd seen my mom again in a year. And I was like, okay, that's good. And then the second dream I had really was, sad, awesome, beautiful in so many ways. I'll never forget it. I was in the dream. It's like it's a little on the nose. It's an all white room. And my mom is standing there butt naked in front of me. So at first I'm like, oh, Mom, come on. But then I'm like, oh my God, Mom. And I go and I look at her and she's this huge smile on her face. And she's naked, but she hugs me. And I like, if I was alive, I am alive. If she was alive and she, I'd feel weird then, but I didn't. And and she looked at me and she said, I'm okay. She was like, I'm good. And that's when I woke up bawling my eyes out. And because, it was so many things. I missed her and I hadn't seen her. It was a real moment of acknowledging the scenario, whereas the first dream was sort of just a moment in time. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, okay. I don't have to worry about her anymore. I just have to worry about me.
Wow.
And yeah, ever since then, that was a nice moment that helped a lot. And then, I still deal with it. It's hard. Well, I mean, it's interesting because I don't have a very large family. I have family members, most of which I don't really talk to. I have my aunt and her partner, Brenda, who are amazing. And I've gotten a lot closer to them over the years. And well, the experience of all of us taking care of my mom together really bonded us pretty seriously. And so it's been kind of an interesting experience. It still pops up from time to time. Like, it's not as constant as it was when it first happened. I don't know how it was for you. But for me at the beginning, it was obviously hard. And then, surprisingly, drugs didn't make it any better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Weird. And then, yeah, it's gotten a little easier, with time. Time heals a lot of things. And it's still interesting because in lieu of a burial, my mother wanted to be planted as a tree. So she was cremated and planted as a cherry tree that I try and go back and see every year.
That's
and
beautiful.
It's blooming and it survived the Maine winters. So it's there.
This is in Maine.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a beautiful way to do it. There's a significance with cherry trees. There's a specific symbolic. I feel like I've Googled this 12 times. I haven't remembered it. There's something about cherry trees.
There might be. She just loved them. It was like her favorite tree or favorite flower tree. And yeah.
Okay. So that you had this dream and you felt like that was a big milestone in regards to getting to working through this.
Yeah. Just in terms of a little bit of closure. Cause I think I was worried about her for so long. There's a weird sort of and I even felt a small breath of, I don't know if anybody else has talked about this with you, but as soon as she was dead, there was almost like a weight lifted off my shoulders in terms of that, okay, I was like, I don't have to worry about her being sick anymore.
Yes.
And I don't want that to sound like, oh, thank God, finally. But we'd been worried and concerned for her for 5-6 years. And now that was over. It was, I didn't have to worry anymore. So I think I carried a lot of that worry over sometimes. There was the immediate feel of relief, but then I think it sort of carried on later. And that dream was a really big, milestone for me in terms of okay, she's good. Yeah. I don't have to, she's probably better off than me.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. And that what you just said, I've heard that multiple times in regard. I haven't had the experience of a anticipatory death and whatnot in that experience, but there is that. I think that's a very natural thing, that feeling of relief, which you explained could come off to the wrong thing. You want him to die. No, it's the stopping of suffering.
Yeah.
We were just talking about suffering. Now you don't have to see your mom. Mm-hmm. Maybe we didn't really discuss how much she was suffering, but I'm sure
it was bad towards the end.
I'm sure there was some level to that, obviously. And so there is a relief. You don't have to worry about that. Then that feeling of relief, I'm sure, not instantaneous, but that transmutes into a whole different batch of feelings.
Yeah. I mean, once I'm not worried about her, I have to unwrap this little gift box right here. And it was a mess in there.
Yeah. And you said it still pops up. How do you mean?
Well, there's moments where I want to call her. I want to talk to her. I want her opinion on things. Anytime I drive by and see a house I like, I'm like, oh, I wonder if she would like that. She probably would. Maybe not. A lot of times when I go to restaurants, my mom loved reviewing restaurants, even though she had no business. I mean, she did. She had good taste, but she's like, I'm going to start writing reviews. I'm like, why? She's like, I want to. And I was like, all right. So it's strange. And I don't think it'll ever go away, really. And maybe that's because I don't have any other parents to rely on. I mean, I have my aunt and she is wonderful about it, but she has her own things she's dealing with because she was taking care of my mom and then she lost her sister and then her mom died 6 months later.
Wow.
And so she's been through so much in her life too. And it's amazing that she's been there for me how she has, with everything she's dealt with. Mm. But it comes up sporadically, and I just think that's just going to be my life for a lot of ways now.
But it comes up differently with a different understanding now.
I have a different understanding of it, or at least I understand how to process it or how to deal with it.
How do you deal with it?
Well, just acknowledging it. I think one of my problems, especially younger and growing up, was I wouldn't address things. I mean, I still struggle with that sometimes, but different. That can be a different talk later.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of accepting is not the right word. Just being aware of it, I think, and understanding that, like, yeah, you're going to miss your mom. It's okay, and she's gone now, but, it's not forever. And, maybe she's, I'm sure she's still here, from time to time, but I'm sure she's busy on the other side because she was always very much meant for that side of things, if that makes sense. Like she's somebody's guardian angel, or I'm sure not just one person, and she checks in on me every once in a while.
Do you feel like we have those moments with the Led Zeppelin songs that start checking in on you?
Sometimes I don't even need the song. And I don't know if this sounds strange or not, but sometimes I know she's right there.
Yeah.
I did have a good moment afterwards. I knew that a moment that was her checking in on me. I had an audition for a show that shot in Germany. My mom always wanted me to get back out there and work on my German. So it was a German show. I booked it, got flown to Germany, and saw one of my oldest friends that I hadn't seen since I was 6 out there finally. And and that was all that kind of wrapped up into. Yeah,
those are those synchronicities that, it's hard not to find meaning in that.
Yeah.
Especially somebody go to fucking Germany or something that.
And whether it's real or it's just me creating meaning, I think it's good. Either way.
It doesn't really matter. That's why I think when people would go back to the same conversation of beliefs, but at the same time, it's like whatever meaning you give to it, that's really all that.
Right.
That's really all.
Real. I always like to quote Harry Potter. He goes, when he's talking to Dumbledore at the end, he goes, "Is this real or is it in my head?" And he's like, "Of course it's in your head, but it doesn't mean it's not real."
Exactly. And that's why when you trip on mushrooms or something, like I don't know what's real, but it feels real as hell.
Yeah.
It feels real as hell.
Like we were saying earlier, I think that mushrooms and psychedelics like that, they remove that veil, right, that we create in our minds.
I think Terrence McKenna used to always, I think his name's Terrence McKenna. He was a big pro hallucinogen man for
Big T.
Big T? You just saying that like you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I didn't think so, but Big T would always kind of say, if I even have his name right, it is like a removal of a filter. And I think it's what we allow in. And again, whatever meaning we give to these experiences, like that's enough. It doesn't fucking matter what someone else says about it.
Yeah, it's your life.
It's your life. And I think all these experiences that you've had clearly have a profound impact on the way you process all this. And how does this tie into your father? Because granted, you didn't lose your dad biologically through a death, but you haven't had your father. So where does this come full circle in how you see the relationship with your father? Well,
I mean, the reason I wanted to go see him to begin with was because, my mom was gone. I didn't have much family besides my aunt. And so I was like, well, I might as well, go and see what's up over there, because if he does want to start, talking to me and stuff, then, I'll have some family again. It'll open it up, And I know that the sisters want to talk to me, and it's great talking to them, but I feel like I'll get the most closure if I reach out and try and talk to my father.
Do you feel like you get closure even if he doesn't?
Yes, I do. Because then I'll finally have the answer. Yes. Like, look, if I've always told people this, it's like, if I meet him and he wants to talk to me, fantastic. Whole new chapter of my life has opened up. I have new things I have a reason to go to Australia. Great. If he doesn't, nothing changes. My life is the same. And I think maybe that's the advantage of never having him versus losing him in a death. Like, it's just something I've never experienced. I mean, I'm sure there'll be sadness there, but it'll still be the same, and I'll finally know, as opposed to wondering.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess, because if you have these hypotheticals with your mom that you're not going to get an answer for, but then if you have someone that's alive, you get the answer whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's just I think that's a really grown-up decision to be aware of the outcome without pondering too much, because you don't want to like.
I've had 34 years to think about it, so.
You think this is going to happen?
I think it has to at some point.
And you're not going to attempt to. You want to show up as opposed to trying to get in touch with them.
Well, I want to make a documentary out of it, and I think that might be the juiciest approach
for marketability. I think that makes sense.
The idea I had was like. You ever see The Rehearsal with Nathan Fielder?
No.
Oh my God.
I don't even know who Nathan Fielder is.
What? Okay. You should watch that. It's amazing. But I thought about rehearsing meeting my father with an actor. and then filming the actual one. And then if I don't get the one I want, I'll just use the
You really thought this out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, plenty of time to think about
What are you going to call it?
Well, I had a name. Well, I was working with a director friend of mine. We were going to go with Father of Mine.
Oh, clever.
Yeah.
Not Maurice.
Maurice, no. Oh, no, Maurice is a different thing. And so we're still supposed to do it at some point, but traveling to Australia is expensive, and especially if I'm producing this thing.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make sure I get the best deal.
Damn, man. So how do you feel today?
As of this morning?
As of this morning, yeah. Specifically,
Well, I had a long
over
weekend.
You did, didn't
No. Today I feel good. You know what's funny? How long has it been? 6-7 years of therapy has done its job, which is nice. And I feel more emotionally aware than ever now. Doesn't mean I still, don't have problems.
Oh, you definitely have problems.
Thank you. But no, I feel okay, at least these days. And you know what? Based on the way I used to feel in the past, feeling okay is great. I'd love to feel amazing, but
Life is suffering.
yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, hey, at least I didn't do it right into the microphone, huh?
Professional.
Yeah. But no, I feel good, and I feel, it's interesting because it's moments, right? It's some days are good, some days are bad. But if I look at the big picture of things, life's not bad. I'm alive. I live indoors. I have good friends.
Thanks. That was a nod to me for anyone not watching.
Yeah.
Thanks. Just want to keep that.
Yeah, life's okay, and it's not the, I'm trying to think of like a poetic way to phrase this, but I'm probably not going to do it.
No, keep trying.
No, that one's been used. It's not the picture I would have painted, but you know what? Sometimes you don't get to choose the paint. So
that was poetic.
Thank you.
That was pretty good, actually. I feel like you're more of a magenta.
Oh, that's a regal color.
Yeah, there we go. That's right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, my liege.
Thank you. Tip the hat. Well, I'm curious about your therapy approach. What exactly? What is work specifically? What is he or she doing that?
She listens.
That's still
yeah. A lot of it's that. I had a terrible experience for the first time I went to therapy. I went to this guy, older guy. I found that my therapist is a woman. She's an older Jewish woman. Shout out to Joan. I'll tell her about this. Joan Boris. She's great. I don't know if I'm allowed to say her name on. Yeah.
That's your problem.
Yeah. We'll talk about it. But I went to this guy. He's this old guy, degrees all on the wall. And I sit down and I just like unload on this guy for like 40 minutes. And then at the end, he's like, okay, yeah, so since you're using drugs, I can't help you.
What?
He was like, I think you need to go complete AA and then I can come to you. And look, to his credit a little bit, he's like, look, the drugs are getting in the way and we can't really get into the therapy until you get that out of the way. And I was like, okay, but I guess you can't help me at all during that. So sweet. I left there. I was mortified. It took me another 6 months before I looked up another therapist.
Wow.
Because I was like, for me, opening up has always been hard, kind of, or a little bit of a challenge. It's been hard. Yeah. And I did that, and the guy was basically like shooed me out of his office, and I was like, okay, fuck.
Oh, man, that'll double down on your.
Yeah. I think I went and got a bag later that night, and I was like,
damn,
fuck that. I was like, I'm not doing that shit again. And then I found Joan, and I told her about that, and she just went, ugh, yeah. She's like, I hate that. She's like, yes. She was like, you should probably do that, but she's like, I feel like I should be here to help you through that.
Yeah, isn't that all kind of part of it?
That's what I thought. And then the first guy was like, nah, sorry.
Meanwhile, you closed the door and left. He did a bag himself. So projecting his own problem.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not the problem. He's the problem.
And that's because I've always heard mixed reviews on therapy. And again, I don't think it's therapy. I think it's who you find.
Yeah, I think it's 100% who you find. And mine is an old Jewish angel.
There we go.
Yeah.
And so you said she listens, aka which reflects on you getting it out. But did you off the beginning? It sounds like if you knew what to say for her to listen, did you already know what you were feeling and what was coming out?
I mean, because I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I think I wasn't ready for how much I wanted to say, like I knew I had things to say, or no, what's the better way of putting it?
Poetically.
Oh, there was a flower. And it needed to seed.
Needed to seed.
But there wasn't a spring wind.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Then Joan was my spring wind.
Is that it?
That flourished the field.
Was that a haiku or that was too many syllables?
I don't know. Yeah. I didn't go to college.
Yeah.
But no, I think it was just all built up, and I wasn't. Well, and I think I've always connected better with women in my life because, single mom, my aunt's a lesbian, my grandmother was by herself, my grandfather died when I was a kid. Like, I was raised by women, basically. So I think I felt more naturally comfortable opening up to a woman versus a man. And, she's Joan is an older woman, so I think there was a sort of a different level of comfort, almost like a grandmother-ish type feel. She's going to watch us and be like, ooh. But no, I think it was just kind of all in there. I think I was a little surprised at myself letting it all out because, it's weird not dealing with something kind of builds up inside you. And then when you get the ability or the space to put it out, maybe sometimes it comes out a little easier than others. But
do you think it was, maybe it doesn't even matter, but do you think your temporary inability to express, was it not having a landing pad or was it you or both?
I think it might have been both. A lot of it was probably me because I've always... Excuse me.
Don't throw up now.
Yeah, that's from holding it all in,
It could have been the espresso, but maybe it's
it could have been the espresso. No, I've always had trouble opening up emotionally, at least. My mother gave me my mother's the one who actually helped me learn to open up in a sort of very strange way. She helped me throw the lemon, is what I say. And so when I was younger and I would get mad, I would shut down. Right, I would just we would get in arguments, me and my mom, obviously. And when she would yell at me, and so when she would yell, I would just shut down. I would turn into a robot, kind of, just everything. And one time, my mom and I were getting into a big argument about God knows what. And she was just she was really laying into me. She was like, "What? You're not going to say anything? You don't feel anything? What are you, a robot? Come on." She's like, "You don't feel anything?" And then it's she kept pushing to the point where I grabbed a lemon right off the kitchen counter and hurled it as hard as I could against the wall and then screamed at her for 30 seconds. And then as soon as I was done, she was like, "Okay, thank you."
Wow.
She was like, "I'm sorry that I was that mean, but I just wanted you to express yourself." She's like, "I wanted you to let it out." And so then I was like, "Oh, weird, I do feel a little bit better."
This works.
Yeah, and then we had a nice laugh about it. And so I always say, she helped me throw the lemon.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That is that's poetic.
Yeah.
Keep coming back to this poetry shit.
Hey.
No, that I think throwing the lemon is a perfect way to put it. And I think sometimes it takes that. You know what I mean? I feel like off the rip, in this day and age, especially, it's oh, maybe your mother's being a little aggressive.
Oh, yeah. People have told me that later. And I was like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
but then again, whatever. I'm, getting yelled at is not a huge deal for me.
No, my mom would raise her voice.
An Italian mother? No way.
Yeah. While holding a wooden spoon.
Yeah.
But again, it's just a different day and age, but I think it worked.
Yeah.
I think it's different per person.
Yeah. Well, she knew, it might not have been the most conventional way to get me, but it fucking worked. And I think it might have been the only way to do it.
Yeah. And so today you feel like it's easier for you to throw the lemon?
Oh, yeah. A lot easier, to express myself just because, getting older. In life, I still don't always do a great job of expressing myself, but I at least am more willing to now.
Well, honestly, you may be seeing each other a lot more as of the last year or so. Mm-hmm. And when we have our own discussions.
Unfortunately.
I wasn't going to say it. Yeah. In regards to us talking more, it's I've even noticed that. Even just within the last year of us talking, I feel like you, and again, obviously I've known you for a long time now, but I think we've gotten closer. Mm-hmm. And due to these discussions, and just I've seen the involvement in the way you're expressing yourself, and even just your awareness. I don't know, maybe this has just always been you, but from my point of view, again, I guess this comes from just learning about you and having this talk alone. But your awareness has seemed to have grown, even just the last year.
Yeah, I think so, and I've been feeling it more.
Feeling
my awareness grow.
Yes,
and it's sort of a strange feeling. Because I think I wasn't okay for so long. When I am okay, I'm like, ooh, what is happening?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I'm there's nothing to freak out about.
That's the thing, though. That's the
Yeah.
thing, because it's a totally abnormal feeling for your body to feel. It's like when you have sugar for a while, then you take away from sugar, and your body feels weird. But it's good that you don't have the sugar. I know. I was just talking to someone about her. She was talking about her addiction to sugar, but she's not that she's like a sugar addict. But when she stopped having sugar, oh wait, like this feels. My body is actually feeling different for having sugar, but the sugar's bad. But then your body feels weird for feeling good.
Oh yeah, I know. And that I've talked to my therapist about that. Sometimes I'm like, I got so used to this doomsday attitude I had that when life's okay and things are going well, I'm like, oh,
time to abort.
Yeah, right. And I do think sometimes perhaps maybe because of what I've been through for so long or what I went through, I think I self-sabotage still a lot, just like inherently, sometimes without even noticing it, just because I think my body was used to feeling, my body, my spirit, whatever, I think it was used to being sad for so long that sometimes it's, I still miss sadness. And not like intentionally, but kind of like what you were just saying. Like, I'm like, oh, it's, it feels weird to feel good.
Yeah, no, that's real. I think that's why we do self-sabotage, and it's weird because you're going in the trajectory of healing, if you will, and being in a better place, but your body's just not used to it. So it's like that's another transitionary step that I don't think is thought of. Like, we think of the steps to get to a place where we want to be, but then we kind of don't realize, oh wait, there is that zone where your body's going to reject like good feelings almost.
Well, it's funny. I read an interesting like self-help book a couple years ago. It's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it was a neuroscientist that wrote it. And he talks about like when you think about certain things, whether it's, and we'll use negative things in this example, your brain, your neural pathways go in a direct line to that area. And when you think about something tragic or upsetting that happened, you're experiencing that thing all over again. Like your brain chemistry is sending out all the same sort of stuff that when you happen in that event. And so in the book, he talks about retraining your neural pathways to like, yes, when you accept an event that happened, don't think about the whole thing over, because all you're doing is sending your brain signals right back to there, and then you're feeling it all over again, stressing yourself out again. And so the best thing to do is like stop, redirect your thought, and just kind of create new neural pathways so that you can at least be, he words it a lot better in the book. It's a great way to kind of just stop re-stressing yourself out.
So when you're working through something and you start triggering those negative thoughts, just stop in your path and redirect those thoughts to something better.
Well, maybe just not even better. Or it's like, yes, better, or just like don't put yourself through that again.
Yeah.
Right? And I've gotten really good at that, and I didn't realize how much I was doing that before until I started really thinking about it.
I was listening to something in regards to, I wonder, because I have a podcast that brings up.
Do you?
Negative. You're just in my apartment.
If only you had some merch you could wear.
Yeah, literally yesterday we were golfing. You're like, you have any merch? I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, you sell hats. I'm like, oh, I was wearing the hat and the shirt. Anyway, I was in a panic. I was in a panic yesterday morning. I woke up too late. But shit. Oh yeah. So when it was talking about, I was relaying the podcast because we're constantly like bringing up these experiences, and then I wonder how much of that is good. It's good to talk about things, but I wonder if there is a limit to constantly bringing it up.
Well, I think talking about it with others is better than thinking about it yourself. And the thing I was working on was thinking about it myself, because at least when you're talking to someone else, they interject, right, your thought process with the conversation. Right? Or they can make you feel better about it instantly because you're talking with someone. Whereas if you're talking to yourself, it's really easy to get down the rabbit hole of feeling shitty. Yeah,
if there's an art to kind of navigating them, like you said, kind of redirecting your thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think those redirecting aren't just a deflection. It's like you said, it's building those neural pathways to...
Yeah, until you can get to a point where you're not reliving the anxiety of a moment.
Yeah, I think even when you get good at that, it's not like you're just going to immediately dissipate those negative thoughts. I think there's
I'm still working on it.
Yeah, but there's a practice of getting better at recognizing it, the awareness, and then redirecting. Then all of a sudden that becomes habitual.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you just like, feel happy all the time. It's,
no.
That's the thing.
Not even close.
It's like happiness isn't constant, but contentment is kind of in a way. And I think it's the process of like, even like the happiest people, they're not always happy. So I think it's important to understand you're not chasing perpetual happiness. Like that's not, I don't think that's possible.
That happens when you die.
Yeah, exactly. We always talk about that. It's like the people like we're the ones left with the shit end of the stick.
Oh,
the ones dealing with it. The people across are either if you don't believe in anything, they're not worried about anything. But then whatever's next, I'm like so certain that it's just like it's going to be better than this.
I like to quote another movie, Pan, where he says, "To die would be a great adventure."
It has to. I mean,
I think so. Like I am not afraid of death. Obviously, I don't want to die, but I can't fucking wait to see what happens on the other side.
Right? It's
stoked.
It's oh my God, it kind of freaks me out, but makes me excited at the same time.
Yeah.
It freaks me out.
That's why I love that quote. It's an adventure, like truly. Like,
yeah, it's like being on a roller coaster and you're scared, but then you're locked in regardless. You can't change when you hit that dip. And then when you're on the ride, it's like, oh fuck, I'm in it.
Hey, this is tight.
This is tight.
Maurice.
Yeah. He's like, at the end, he's like, it's been Paul this entire time.
Yeah, it was Paul, man. Thanks. I watched the podcast.
He's literally here right now trying to tap.
He's just on the other side.
Maurice.
Yeah, Paul.
Paul. And hopefully one day I'll figure out who it is. Like, oh, you're Paul.
Yeah, I'll have to call my aunt. She's gonna kick my ass if I got the name wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Maurice.
Well, I mean, fill it in with whatever name. Your mom still had that experience, and that experience is fascinating. She predicted her death.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like that. It's just like, it's a knowingness. And that makes me wonder if she knew that. It's like, she was already tapping into something that she like not saw the future, but she was sent a message. Like, what is that?
Well, I think it was the lack of oxygen to the brain to start, but I think that brought the veil down. I think that opened her up more. I mean, she was always my mother was very in tune to begin with. So that mixed with that, I think made it very easy.
So with your thought, with the understanding and belief that there's more, is that, and you're like, I'm going to see my mom again.
I'd like to think so.
Do you believe so?
Well, I don't know, because I'm a reincarnation guy, too. And so my mom told me before she died she would love to come back as a little blonde-haired girl in a very loving family.
Girl?
Girl. Sorry. Excuse me. It's your damn espresso.
Yeah.
And that was a very interesting sort of sweet thought when she told me that. I mean, it made me a little sad about her family life growing up because, it wasn't the greatest in the world. So she just wanted to come back and be loved. Her entire life. So I always like to think if I ever meet some random little blonde kid, little blonde girl, and I don't know. So I would like to see my mother on the other side. But, it's funny. It's like, eventually it's going to be, ideally I outlive her, but, we don't know. And, for a while, eventually it's going to, she'll have been gone so long. Sometimes I fear, will I remember? I mean, I think I obviously will, but, it's a weird thought process you give yourself sometimes. I mean,
that's kind of where I'm at.
Do you think you'll see your dad?
Fucking, it's just kind of similar. Like, I hope so. I think so. I hope so. And then when you think of a reincarnation, but like recently I read a comment that was like, but if they reincarnated, how do you see? Then it's like, I don't know. Like, maybe some people don't reincarnate right away, so maybe that makes sense. But then even if they do, maybe their soul still simultaneously exists. I don't know. We're gonna find out. I hope so. But in regard to tap into the memory thing, that's something that I feel like I'm not struggling with. But it's been 23 years, so it's like I get more forgetful. Yeah. But then I see then lately I've been catching some new videos that people have sent me, so I have like those new memories again.
Oh, that's nice.
Like new memories, not again. Like it's a new memory. It's like I don't remember that experience, even though I was in the photo. It's like I've never seen that photo, so it's like a new memory.
It's funny. I'm sort of afraid of them sometimes because I have an old video that I found of a camera. And I had it digitized, and I still haven't watched it.
Really? What's holding you back?
I don't know. Well, I guess I wanted to save the first of me watching it for the documentary. Get those real kind of emotions. And then eventually I was just like, I don't know why I haven't watched it. I mean, maybe because it'll make me sad, and I'm in a good kind of place-ish right now. Part of it's waiting for the documentary. Yeah. Part of it is I don't know where I put it. No, it's on my desk. But
the truth finally comes out.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it goes back to two things. Also, if we're talking about the marketability of your documentary and the realness of the world, you could just film yourself watching it for the first time, and you have that archive. So. But also, I think what you were just discussing, the quote from that book of redirecting those neural pathways, at least you're equipped a little bit to when you do feel that, to be prepared for that. But then maybe you just have to go through it. I don't know. Maybe, when you're ready, you're ready. You're gonna know.
No, that's a good point. I don't know if I think I am in a better place. Maybe I am more ready now than I was in the past.
I could film it for you.
Good. Yeah. You know what?
Yeah. You just
do it right now.
It's like a cassette player. You just already hit play. Well, damn, man, I appreciate you. These episodes are honestly special for me because, again, it's obviously it's always special when I get someone open up to me and have these conversations. But it's cool to have a conversation with a friend, and I didn't know majority of that. I knew your story, but there's a lot I didn't know. So for you to be willing to share it with me and people that are listening, it's a special thing, and I really appreciate you sitting in front of me. And
of course, dude, my pleasure. Thanks for finally having me on.
I've been wanting to do this. I literally again, it's
invited me to a softball team before you invited me to this.
Well, that's what it took. It took you to realize you actually wanted to talk to me.
Of course,
you know what I mean. Then
you're a pretty charming guy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Well, no, thank you for having me on. I think it's such a good podcast and such an under discussed topic.
Yeah,
you know, for something that is so prevalent in our lives.
It's the most prevalent.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's a 70% women following, 30% men. So it's always a privilege to have a man talk to me about this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think that's an important angle that I've been trying to unravel is more men.
It's hard.
It's hard.
I mean, I think being raised by women is one of the things that helped me. Same. It took me a minute too.
I mean, literally the same. I was raised by women, and it took me a while. I was very, I kept everything under wraps.
Oh, yeah.
And so it took some time. And it is a balance. Like, the more I talk about this, I think it's good to talk about it. And sometimes there's other methods outside of just talking about it. But for you in particular, I think it seems to be good to talk about it.
Yeah, I've learned. Talking about my feelings helps.
Yeah, and it goes back to the awareness. Everybody's like, what does that mean just to talk about it? And sometimes literally just talking is enough.
Just the act of doing it.
Yeah, and like that's where the listening part is important. It doesn't matter what the other person has to say. It's more a discovery of what comes out of your mouth.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's where therapy helped a lot. And for a while, and still sometimes I do, I'll get nervous before therapy because I'm like, I don't want to tell her I messed up or I don't want to tell her what's going on. And then, God, for a while I was lying to my therapist like a fucking idiot. And then eventually, surprise, surprise, that all built up. And I was like, ah. And then my therapist, she told me, she's like, Miles, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to scold you or make you feel bad. I'm here so you can talk to me. She's like, she's like, sure, I may be disappointed in your actions, but that's because I want you to be healthy.
Yes.
You know, she's like, but I'm never going to scold you for making mistakes. She's like, that's what I'm here to do is help you through that.
That's amazing, Joan. Joan sounds amazing.
Yeah, she really is. And it's become a lot like, sure, I'm like, I don't want to tell her I messed up, but now it's because not so much that I'm afraid of it. It's like, I don't want to disappoint her.
That's good.
Not that I would, not that she would like be disappointed in me, but I like, you know, because I know she wants what's best for me. And so
it adds some accountability in a way.
Yeah, which I'm great with.
Accountability. I was just gonna cut you off there, but you already said it. And so since we're at the end of the episode, it's always the worst transition in podcast history.
Oh,
but I feel like this is the best time for you to plug Aging Millennials.
Oh yeah. If you want to see some sketch comedy, follow us on Aging Millennials on Instagram. We are on YouTube as well. But in all honesty, I will think in terms that has sort of helped me a lot in terms of creative outlets, because I'm an artist, I like to think. And in all honesty, doing that has really helped, I think, satiate me in a lot of ways in terms like creatively, emotionally, like it's fun to get expressed. And thankfully, you know, we do okay.
Yeah,
you know, if we were getting 10 views a video for 2 years, it'd be different.
Yeah.
But we do all right. And it's nice. It's fun. Check us out if you get the chance. We'll have David on at some point.
There we go. And I think also I'm going to definitely plug some of your content that has to do with your dad. Have you done anything with your mom? You haven't done any sketches in regards to your experience with your mom?
No, those I've been told are too dark. But no, I do an annual Father's Day video.
Yeah, the father. What was the one that I always bring up? It was something about what were the ones you done with your dad?
I did one last year. I had a cocktail by myself. The year before that was playing a game of chess alone. The year before that, I showed the tree house he built me, which was just an empty tree. And then I just got a tattoo of my dad and reveal my blank arm. The trickiest one I did was my dad teaching me how to drive. And I did this when I was back home taking care of my mom. No. It wasn't my dad teaching me how to drive. It was out for a drive with my dad. And my mom drove a Standard. And I got in the passenger seat and parked it on a hill and let it roll by itself with no driver in the front seat. And then I tried to film like, hey, out for a drive with dad. And it's just the car moving and no one in the driver's seat.
You actually recorded that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was very dangerous.
Did you drop that one?
Yeah, that was a while ago. It's on there somewhere. It's on my page, I think. I don't think it's on Aging Millennials, but follow at Miles Wood, too. I need the followers.
There you go. Yeah. So I'm going to plug everything in the bottom of the episode as usual. Miles, I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you having me on.
For wait another 5 years for the next episode.
Okay, good. Perfect.
Clock starts now. Thanks, guys. until next time. But
thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.